Hello, I'm Pat Reid, the founder and editor of Shakespeare magazine, and today I've been reading Shakespeare's sonnets in the Arnos Vale cemetery in Bristol, which is a beautiful Victorian cemetery which is in the process of being reclaimed from decades of being overgrown by nature. I didn't actually read the sonnets near any of the graves because there are people visiting the graves here, and it felt disrespectful to be doing a kind of performance that was not connected with the kind of visiting the graves. So I did find they've built a new pathway to one side of the cemetery, which kind of leads nowhere, but into the woods, but which is lovely. It's really peaceful and still here, and there's bird song, and it seems that one thing I've learned about reading sonnets is that I seem to read them better when I'm walking, strangely enough. So I got into the habit of kind of pacing up and down reading the sonnets out loud, and so today I've read Shakespeare's sonnets 11 to 15, and it's been a few weeks since my last instalment when I read some of the sonnets 5 to 10, I think 6 till 10 at the Stanton Drew Stone Circle. So I'm still on track to read all the sonnets by the end of the year. I mean, it should be doable. I mean, I could read them if I really had to in 2 or 3 hours, but I want to spread this out over the year to really think about the sonnets and to really enjoy them. So it's quite important to me now to find beautiful places to do this. It seems to enhance the entire experience, and I thoroughly urge you to do the same. But today, I mean, I realised that I didn't talk that much about the sonnets themselves in my last video, and that was partly because I'm holding the iPad in one hand, the book in the other. It's kind of difficult to flick through the pages and find references and things, and with the sonnets there's a lot to process, and I'm worried that I'll just come across as a complete idiot. I'm kind of doing this without referring to scholarly texts on the sonnets, so a lot of my first impressions, well, I have read the sonnets before, but a lot of my first impressions on this rereading are going to be kind of naive and probably quite wide of the mark, but with sonnets 11 to 15 just today, what I've been finding is, famously some of these sonnets are addressed to a beautiful young man, and they're urging him to have a child, because one day he'll be old and he will decay and he will die, and he needs to leave a copy of himself behind for the world to enjoy. And so you see sonnet 11 ends with the couplet, "She carved thee for her seal, and meant thereby thou shouldst print more, not let that copy die." So it's, obviously enough, it's the comparison of printing a book or printing a poem to printing a copy of yourself. Sonnet 12 is the one that I really like. I think it's sonnet 12, "When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night." It's the one which is most like, I think, people's idea of what a beautiful English poem should be, because that's the thing with the sonnets, is that they are kind of they're not that easy, and they're not that pretty, they are quite strange, I think, to modern tastes. And sonnet 12 is, almost all of it is what you would expect a nature referencing kind of love poem to be. It's very beautiful. It kind of I think has been much imitated over the centuries. And summer's green, all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly beard. So it's kind of, we've got summer, we've got winter, we've got lofty trees, I see barren of leaves. So it's a nature poem. But then right at the end we've got this kind of mythological image of Time Slithe, and nothing against Time Slithe can make defence. But then, instead of ending with saying something like, but my love for you will endure forever, he ends with, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence. The last line of the poem is, you got to breed, because you're going to die, and there's going to be nothing left behind unless you have a child. And so it's not very romantic. It could otherwise be a love poem, but Shakespeare takes it somewhere else, and so maybe that's why Sonnet 12 is not so well loved, sort of by kind of regular readers. And Sonnet 13 again ends with, you had a father, let your son say so. You've got to have a son. It's actually not just have a child, but have a son. So it's kind of like that. It reminds one of that that kind of Tudor obsession with having a male heir. And of course the thing that we know that Henry VIII apparently was obsessed with having a son, and when he finally had a son, what he didn't know was that the son was going to die young, Edward the Sixth, and that Henry VIII's two daughters, whom he had previously illegitimised, would both become queens. Mary the First, of course, succeeded by Elizabeth the First, who we think of as being one of the great monarchs of history. So Shakespeare is kind of repeating this this preoccupation with having a male heir, it seems, because without that, the the family line will die out, I suppose, is the anxiety. And of course that is what happened to Shakespeare's line. we know this, but it does seem strange though that the idea of having a daughter was kind of seen as second best, because one thing we've learned from Queen Elizabeth I and Queen Victoria and now Queen Elizabeth II is that actually the English and the British people really like having a queen, and but Shakespeare was a product of his age, and who knows his reasons for writing these sonnets. But yeah, Sonnet 14 is really interesting as well. Not from the stars do I my judgment pluck, and yet methinks I have astronomy.